China is pushing back against the Trump administration's new sanctions campaign. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent on Monday threatened sanctions on countries that refuse to cut economic ties with Iran. China is one of Iran's biggest trading partners and the largest consumer of its oil. So this felt particularly targeted toward them, even though they weren't named. The country's foreign ministry spokesman said yesterday China will, quote, take all necessary measures to firmly safeguard its own rights and interests, adding that China-Iran cooperation, in their words, should not be disrupted or undermined, noting that it has conformed with international law. Meanwhile, as the stalemate over the Strait of Hormuz drags on, Iran's deputy foreign minister says Tehran and Oman agreed on a temporary route for shipping there, but reiterated the key waterway will not reopen until the U.S. fulfills its commitments under the Memorandum of Understanding. I was pretty sure that had lapsed. We're going to talk about all of it with former spokesperson for the U.S. mission to the United Nations, Hagar Shamali. She also worked at the NSC and the Treasury Department. And it's that last gig that I would like to start with, because the big news on the Iran front this week was the Treasury Secretary coming out, we thought, to announce what this new sanctions package was going to be. And instead, it was just the threat of a sanctions package. I mean, you worked there. You and I were talking during the commercial, and I asked you, could you imagine going out and doing a press conference like that where you don't actually have anything to announce? You're like, I'm maybe going to do a thing at some point in the future. What's the point of that?
Yeah, I understand the pressure campaign they're trying to build. It's not too dissimilar if Congress, for example, were to prepare legislation that says we are preparing legislation that would impose secondary sanctions, and we're giving the president the authority to do it.
Which loomed for a while on Russia.
Yes, and with Iran, for example, we've had that before. So the idea is it would be so wide-reaching and so significant to crack down on everybody doing business with the Iranian regime or facilitating that this way it's to increase the pressure. Hopefully you see people react, do it on their own. And if not, then Treasury can follow up. But Treasury has to make good on that threat, or people won't take these sanctions very seriously.
Well, there's also a question, too, of if sanctions are the way to affect the kind of change that the president is wanting, which is he thought military might would draw the Iranians to the table. It did for a time, but that memorandum of understanding has seemingly fallen apart. We are so far past that 60-day deadline that was instituted within it, and no closer to answering some of its key questions that were left unanswered there. But then also the economic question has always been, how much pain can the Iranians endure? And their tolerance for it is quite high. And so is this the right lever to pull?
Yeah, so you're right about this. The thing I would say is that we have to look at historical precedent. So when I was at the White House and we had Congress and President Obama imposing secondary sanctions on those purchasing Iranian oil specifically, it was those sanctions that really brought the Iranian regime to its knees and brought them to the negotiating table in 2014 for the nuclear talks back then. So there is precedent for this pressure, particularly when it's global in nature, and when it hits the oil markets, that really pressures the Iranian regime. But that takes time. So those sanctions came in 2010, 2011, 2012, and those negotiations were in 2014. So yes, it does work. I am a big believer in sanctions, as you know, but it's not a quick fix.
It's not a quick fix, but there is this looming meeting between the Chinese and the U.S., Xi and Trump. What do you make of the Chinese reaction to this? And what would the ripple effects be if these tariffs go into effect, if they start impacting China, or rather sanctions go into effect? There's a lot of economic levers we're pulling these days. The sanctions go into effect, they start targeting China. What is the ripple effect of that?
So, well, you're going to see those ripple effects both, I mean, economically for sure in China, but also here. And that's why we're seeing, on one hand, you have this, the Trump administration trying to use all these financial levers, as you said, sanctions, tariffs, and so on, since really Trump came to office. But you're also seeing this willingness to negotiate and do deals. And when you had the visit a few months ago, this was a visit to Beijing, the Trump administration visit, that they placed a lot of pressure on. And Iran was their number one focus. It remains that. And as you said, Secretary Bessent, the message was really communicating to China specifically. They want really deeply to bring China on their side on this issue specifically. And it's different for President Xi. He plays the long game. It's a different calculation for him.
It's a different calculation for him. I also thought it was interesting the way that Bessent said at one point, the president is making basically calls on the side privately, and reporters rightly asked, who are those calls being made to? And the Secretary of the Treasury didn't really detail that. But you have to imagine that there are inroads being made, not just with the Chinese, but potentially even with the Russians, because they've had some kind of a role to play in propping up the Iranians, too.
everywhere, India, Lebanon, anywhere where there's Iranian regime business activity. And this, by the way, this was common when I was at Treasury. Whenever we had sanctions, and even sometimes before you have sanctions announced, I used to call it the roadshow, where the leaders would go around the world and share declassified intelligence to say, listen, you've got this behavior, you should shut it down. You have correspondent relationships in New York. We imagine you enjoy dollar clearing at the Fed. Take action against this, or you're going to see follow-up from us. So that's not unique to Treasury. Treasury does do a lot of that behind the scenes. A lot of the best work is done behind the scenes, and Secretary Bessent said that. So that's true. But again, we're going to have to see the material effect. And you've got a lot of countries on the front lines of that Iranian regime illicit financial behavior.
And those, of course, are the Gulf nations that we are often talking about. Yeah, who are trying to reorient both in the short term and in the medium term if there is some kind of a deal that is struck between the U.S. and Iran to actually end this conflict. I love the way that you can come on and sort of separate for us what is fact from fiction, what is normal, not normal. It's so important in helping us understand how this administration is dealing in this present moment. Hagar Chemali, just excellent to see you. Thank you.
You too, always.